Hey, hello. It's been a while, huh? Yeah, it's been a while. So, I'm probably very late with this, and I'm sure everyone has already put their full reviews and thoughts and opinions on the game out there. And I wanted to get this video out sooner, but at the same time, I didn't really want to rush it either. I just wanted to take my time with the game and enjoy the experience, and so I did. Now, having said that, I have also been away on holiday for 2 weeks, and we picked up our new kitten last week, so I didn't really have much time to work on this video anyway. But now that I've played through most of the game and I've had some time to gather my thoughts, I want to talk about it. And boy, do I have a lot to say. Now I'll start off by saying this video is completely spoiler-free and isn't going to be a full proper review, because as of the writing of this script, I haven't actually finished the game yet. I'm pretty close though. Instead, this video will be something in between of a first impressions and a full review, I guess. I'll just share my general thoughts on the game and what my experience has been like so far, and I'll save a full review for later. The footage I'll be using will be of various locations in Act 1, but I'll make sure to avoid anything that might give away important information. I'm also going to try and keep this video as structured as possible, but I can't promise anything. And if there is any specific thing you want to hear my thoughts on, there will be chapter markers below, as always. Anyway, with that long-ass intro out of the way, grab your flasks, let's gather our party, and venture forth, as I tell you about my thoughts on Baldur's Gate 3. So to start off, what has my general experience been like? Well, pretty fucking great. Apart from the 2 weeks that I was away on holiday, I've been playing Baldur's Gate 3 basically every day since release, and I've been loving every moment of it. That's not to say everything's perfect or that I didn't experience any bugs, because I certainly did, and I'll talk about those in more detail later in the video. But overall, I think Baldur's Gate 3 is a very good fucking game. A phenomenal game, even. The characters are good, the voice acting is excellent, there is a fuck ton of content, the world feels alive. The amount of reactivity and detail and the many different ways you can solve encounters or problem in the game is just mwah, chef's kiss. So to give you an idea of what kind of player I am and what my playthrough has been like so far, I am playing the game on PC using a mouse and keyboard, and I am playing as a custom character. I am doing a mostly good playthrough, or at least I try to. I've recruited as many of the companions as possible and have done most of their personal quests so far, and I've tried to do as much of the content as I could. I'm currently in Act 3, but I think I'm pretty close to finishing the game, and by the time you watch this video, I might have even already finished it. Alright, so, character creation. I think the character creator in Baldur's Gate 3 is great. It's got a lot of customization. You get to pick your race and class, subclass, ability points, skill proficiencies, and of course your appearance. I'm overall really happy with the options that we have. I'm loving all the hairstyles, there's a lot of variety there, and with the highlight and graying options you can create an even more unique character. There's lots of hair, eye and skin color options to choose from. There are options for tattoos, scars, piercings and makeup, freckles, heterochromia, and vitiligo pigmentation. There's also a genital option, which I didn't really care for, but it's nice that it's there for the people that do. And if you're wondering, the game does have a modesty filter, so you can turn off nudity completely if you want to. Each race has a few different faces to choose from, and most races have 2 default body types, those being masculine or feminine. Some of the other races have 2 extra body types, those being a buff version of the masculine and feminine body types. I guess my only complaint, or it's more of a nitpick really, is that I wish we had a bit more options to customize our character's face. Not necessarily sliders, I guess, but maybe an option to pick different eyebrows or a different kind of nose, you know, things like that. The face options that we have are good. I like most of them, but I do wish there was just a bit more there to make our character just a bit more unique. It's only a small nitpick, and I do get why face options might be a little limited, since every part of the face is animated for facial expressions, and having a very customized face might make animations look a bit weird, or at least make it more difficult to get them to look right, I guess. And like, the facial animations in this game are fantastic. I've noticed a few times in games that use mocap for facial animations that the expressions tend to look a bit uncanny valley, but for Baldur's Gate 3 I think they've done a really good job at getting it to look right. And on the topic of facial expressions, there are many times where you're in a conversation with an NPC, and they either say something or do something that your companions will react to by making a certain facial expression. I actually have some examples that would perfectly demonstrate what I mean, but those examples are also unfortunately spoilers, so I'm gonna have to keep it a bit vague. The best I can give you is there is one instance where you meet a certain NPC, and that certain NPC tells you they've been looking for one of your companions, and they mention them by name. And if said companion is with you in a party when the NPC says their name, your character and that companion will give each other a quick look, and the expression on their faces is just, it's been done so well. You can really, in that moment, you can really see what they're thinking. It's like, oh, shit. And I'm sorry if that's too vague and didn't make any sense, but it's the best I could do without spoiling it. And if you've played the early access, you might even know what NPC and what companion I'm talking about. Man, I can't wait to talk about this in my full review, because footage of this would just do it so much more justice. Anyway, moving on. Gameplay. Gameplay's good. I love the turn-based combat, although sometimes enemies take a while to take their action and will just stand there doing nothing for at least 5 seconds, sometimes even longer, which by itself is not really an issue, but some of the encounters in this game already take a pretty long time, and when there's a lot of enemies and they all take a few seconds to do nothing before taking their action, it can get a bit annoying, because you can't really do anything and you're just waiting. But overall, had a blast with the combat. I like how a lot of the encounters in this game aren't super straightforward, and there's like a gimmick to them. Like, there's a boss, but before you can attack the boss, you have to get rid of this thing that's giving it resistance or immunity, and you also have to get rid of its minions. Stuff like that. It isn't just like, we're all gonna focus the boss and that's that. It's like Larian themselves described, it's like a puzzle that you need to solve, and I like that a lot. I like the game's verticality, and I like the fact that the camera can be brought down close to a third-person view. But I do wish we were able to rotate the camera up a bit so that we could see more of what's in front of us or what's above us when we're zoomed in on our character. Especially in places with a lot of buildings like the city, or in smaller spaces like houses or caves. The game uses a point-and-click system to walk. I still don't love that. I still prefer WASD, but now that I'm used to it, I don't mind it as much. Other than that, playing this game just feels good. And the dice rolls, they just make a playthrough so much more interesting in my opinion, and add even more replayability. Cause like, even if I am planning on doing a very similar playthrough and making similar choices, I might succeed on a dice roll that I failed in my previous playthrough or the other way around. And I might get to see a completely new piece of content because of that. The randomness of it all just adds another interesting layer to the game for me. Story. I'm not gonna say too much about the story yet, again for spoiler reasons and because I haven't finished it yet, even though I'm pretty close. I feel like it wouldn't be fair to judge it completely. What I will say is that I like what I've experienced so far. There are some expected but also unexpected twists, and although your character follows the thread of the main narrative, I feel like the game and its story give you enough autonomy and choices to carve your own path within the world and the narrative. There's plenty of ways to reach your goal, and you decide which path you'll take to get there, who you take with you, and how you come out at the end of it. I can really feel that the stakes are high, and the things I do really matter. The choices I make may come back to bite me in the ass later, or end up being an advantage for me. At some point in the game, I encountered an NPC. There are multiple ways of dealing with this NPC, but I decided to fight them, and I defeated them. Then much later on in the game, I encountered this NPC again, on my enemy's side. But the NPC remembered our previous battle and recognized me as a worthy opponent. This allowed me to roll a persuasion check, and persuade the NPC to fight by my side instead. It's things like this that keep me always curious about what consequences my actions will have. The game's doing a great job at keeping me hooked, and I'm constantly on the edge of my seat wondering what's going to happen next. The world and side quests. I feel the same way about the world and the side quests you can find within it. They all offer another interesting interaction or story, even if they are unrelated to the main narrative. The banter from companions that you hear as you walk around the world is entertaining to listen to. It's nice to hear companions interact with each other, and it tells you a bit more about their personality and how they think of each other. Walking around in the game is just fun. I constantly feel myself wanting to explore more so I could potentially run into a new quest or meet a new NPC. And exploring thoroughly rewards you, as there are plenty of secrets hidden around the world, waiting to be discovered. Even as someone that played since the beginning of Early Access, there are plenty of new things to see in the first act. For the most part, especially in the earlier acts of the game, you really feel the consequences of your actions, and the things you did and the choices you made early on will come back later in the game. I also love the random encounters and cutscenes you can get while long resting. And I say random, but I'm sure most of them have a certain trigger, but you don't always know what that trigger is, especially on your first playthrough, so every long rest I take, I'm excited to potentially see another cutscene or event. Especially when you get one when you don't expect it at all, which I've had happen a few times, and it was always a fun surprise. I do have to say, these kind of cutscenes and the general reactivity in the game are best in the first two acts. In Act 3, at least so far, there aren't as many special interactions or reactions from companions. The things that you do get are still really good, but there's just not as much of it as in the previous acts of the game. Larian did do a great job at adding some nice tie-ins and references to the previous games though, like, there was quite a bit more than I expected. I was even pleasantly surprised to see a few familiar faces, and that's all I'll say about that. I'll leave it up to you to discover who these familiar faces are. Alright, so companions. There's so much to say about them, I don't even know where to begin, and that includes both origin and non-origin companions. Since this is a spoiler-free video, I'll try to keep this relatively short, and save all my full thoughts for my full review video. But I can tell you that I think the companions are pretty fucking great. The only one I can't judge is Minthara, since I couldn't recruit her in my type of playthrough. I have heard a lot of great things about her though, people seem to be really liking this character, so that's good. There are a couple of characters I didn't love as much as the others, but overall, they're all really interesting, complex characters with their own personality and opinions and compelling backstories. I know there are people who have said they don't like the companions because some of them are assholes, and honestly, fair enough. Some of them really are assholes in the beginning, but I would encourage you to give them a chance at least once. Keep them in your party for a bit. Spend time talking to them and get to know them. If you earn their approval, they will open up to you and look to you for guidance. You can encourage their behavior or challenge their way of thinking, and combined with the way you play your character, either good, evil, or something in between, most of them can actually change pretty significantly after a personal quest, for the better or for the worse. And damn, some of the scenes in that personal quest were really intense and really emotional. There was one specific line of dialogue from Shadowheart after her personal quest that quite literally had me tearing up, because what she said and the way she said it just felt so real. The voice actors really did a phenomenal job at bringing these characters to life and making them feel like real people. And not only the companions, the villains were fucking great too. The only thing I'd say there is that I wish we'd seen more of them before we fight them, just because they're just so damn compelling. So I originally had a whole bit about it being a little too easy to accidentally start a romance, with a lot of players ending up with their entire camp wanting to bang their character. But I think Larian have since addressed this and told us that this wasn't intentional and are working on fixing it. So I have decided to just remove that whole section. I will say that I do like the fact that companions can actually take the initiative to start a romance for once, rather than the player having to always be the one to do that. I heard pretty good things about most of the romances overall, though the only one I can really talk about is Astarion, since he's the one I romanced in my playthrough, and I like it a lot so far. Without going into spoilers, I think the romance so far is very well written. The way the romance starts off works well for his character, and the things he does make sense if you look at his personality and the things he's been through. The romance scenes you get with him, especially in the later parts of the game, are pretty damn cute. And depending on how you play your character, your actions, and how you treat him, you can actually change how he views himself. I don't know if something similar happens in the friendship route, but it can be a pretty big turning point for this character in the romance. As for the other characters, I can only judge their friendships, and I like those a lot too. Some companions have more interactions than others, but most of them have some very genuine and emotional moments. I have already shouted out Shadowheart earlier in the video, so now I want to take a moment to remind everyone that Karlach is great, and I love her, and she deserves all the hugs and kisses. Unfortunately, I did also experience a few bugs. Fortunately, most of them weren't really game-breaking. It was mostly just minor bugs like characters interrupting their own sentences, voice dialogue not playing, dialogue options not showing properly, and instead just showing the one option with continue, and some visual bugs. I've had a few crashes and a bug where I couldn't interact with certain items. I've had a bug where placing a custom marker on the map would give me a black screen and made me unable to interact with anything, resulting in me having to reload a previous save. And I've had a bug in a certain encounter where the enemies just stopped attacking and stood still, essentially always skipping their turn. A reload fixed this though, thankfully, and it's the only time I encountered this specific bug. I think out of all the bugs I encountered, the map marker one was the most frustrating one and did take me out of the immersion a bit, but overall it wasn't too bad. Another point of feedback that I have is the amount of reactivity from companions specifically does go down a bit in Act 3, as I mentioned briefly earlier in the video. They still make comments on certain things that happen, but I was expecting a bit more special dialogue or cutscenes with them when it comes to some of the more important events in Act 3. I'll leave it at that for now, but I'll definitely talk more about that in my full review of the game. So to summarize my overall thoughts, as a huge fan of cinematic, story-focused fantasy games, Baldur's Gate 3 is right up my alley, and I've been having a blast playing through it. The sheer amount of content in this game and the random nature of the dice rolls offer a truly unique experience, and can make for many different playthroughs. The game's world really feels alive to me, and its characters feel like real people rather than just soulless NPCs. I find the combat incredibly fun, and thinking outside of the box is encouraged and rewarded, both during and outside of combat. I like the companions and origin characters a lot, and I recommend recruiting them all at least once so you get to know them better and see how their story plays out. Some of the bugs I encountered were annoying, but didn't ruin my experience at all. It's safe to say I absolutely love this game so far, and I think it could easily be one of my favorite games of all time. Though it is not perfect and does have some issues. Thankfully, Larian seem to be working hard to fix these issues and address general feedback they're getting from the community. They've already rolled out 2 big patches and a few hotfixes. They've already fixed over 1,000 bugs and are addressing some feedback regarding the epilogues. And you know what, while I'm on the topic, I want to thank Larian Studios for that. Thank you for making this incredible game and taking our feedback seriously, both during early access and now that the game has been fully released. It is very clear to me that you are passionate about the games you create, and that you care about making it fun for the players and giving them a great experience. And as a player and a fan of video games, I really appreciate that. I am loving Baldur's Gate 3, and I have grown attached to this world and its characters. And I know there are no current plans for DLC or expansions, but I'd be lying if I said there isn't a part of me that wants to spend more time with these characters and go on another adventure with them. Having said that, I think you guys have done an amazing job either way, and I can't wait to see what you will come up with next. Really, keep up the amazing work and keep on making awesome video games. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, let me know by liking this video, or leave a comment and let me know what your thoughts are on Baldur's Gate 3 so far. Are you thinking of playing it, or are you currently playing it yourself? What kind of playthrough are you doing? Have you finished it? I'd love to hear from you. If you want to support the channel, check out my Patreon, or join my Discord server and let's chat about Baldur's Gate 3 some more. That's it for now though, thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you on the next one.